Hello everybody, welcome to Friday Club. Thank you for tuning in to us. If you haven't seen us before, well, we hope you'll enjoy your evening with us. Okay, I'm going to start off with a bit of a challenge today. All three of us are going to do Jelly Baby Licorice Lace challenge to see who can eat the licorice lace and eat the Jelly Baby as quick as possible.
On the sides.
What are you going to do again, Beatrice?
You've got to suck it up into your mouth, okay?
Now,
No hands. You can get it out and then
All
put
right.
your hands away, okay?
so kids, watch how to do this because we want you to have a go at home.
Yeah.
Okay?
3, 2, 1.
I just got the giggles and couldn't do anything with my lips at all. I'm hopeless.
Laces or any kind of lacy things. And some jelly babies. Just tie your lace around the jelly baby. Have a bit of fun. Okay?
That's it, kids.
Gonna
Because I was last, I haven't got to eat my sweets. That's not fair. I'll keep that to right, if we can move the camera in, I'm just learning, so bear with us. Thank you. We're just moving it in because we've got some work on the screen. Right, so if some of you watched last week's video where Beatrice was cooking, it made me think of this subject. Well, the items she cooked not only looked good, they smelled good, and they tasted wonderful. Our Esther, my dog, who most of you know, she thought they were brilliant too. The only thing, Esther has a bit of a jippy tummy. She has to be careful what she eats. But she didn't think about that. The temptation of the smell of the food was too much for her. And it just tempted her to have some, so she did, and she suffered the next day. We're the same, and it can be difficult for us to resist temptation. Now, if you read this bit on the board, temptation is when we want to do something that we shouldn't. Now, that in itself isn't the problem. Being tempted isn't the problem. It's giving into temptation that is the problem. Now, there's lots of levels of temptation, and it's usually based on what the consequences are. I mean, really, if we're doing something we shouldn't do, that's wrong. But from maybe eating that lovely cupcake that your mum told you to wait for, well, the consequences could be you spoiled your tea because you've eaten before you had your savoury, or you might not have enough for everybody to have one later. In these days, there's things like not washing your hands properly, and you can understand the terrible consequences of not doing that, yet it seems a little thing just to wash your hands for 20 seconds, do all the backs and the fronts and your nails and stuff. Now, often people think they haven't done anything wrong if no one finds out that they've done it. But of course, the consequences are often still the same either way. So actually, it's a sign of maturity in your growing up if you do as you should, whether somebody is watching or not. So there are some choices and temptations that can actually harm our relationship with God, and they have long-lasting consequences. So today, we're looking in the book of Genesis. You know, that's the first book of the Bible, and we're back to speaking about Adam and Eve. And a lot of you have heard about Adam and Eve before, and at this time, they're in the Garden of Eden. Now, it isn't a garden like we have at home. Now, we can't tell by the description in the Bible exactly how big it is, but it's something like the size of a country. But the point is that it was perfect. Their lives were perfect, they had everything they needed, and their relationship with God was perfect too. There was one rule. I'm sure a lot of you are shouting it at the screen at the moment. God said, you may eat the fruit of any tree in the garden, except the tree that gives knowledge of what's good and bad. So let me read the passage to you. It's only a short one. The snake said to the woman, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" The woman said to the snake, "We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say you must not eat fruit from the tree that's in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it or you'll die." "Oh, you will certainly not die," the snake said to the woman. "For God knows when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Well, when the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food, and it pleased her eye, like cupcakes do me, and it was also desirable for gaining wisdom, that can't be a bad thing, can it? She took some and she ate it, and she also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized that they were naked. They knew good and bad. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. Then the man and his wife heard the sound of God as he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day. They hid from God among the trees of the garden. But God called to the man, "Where are you?" Adam answered, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." God said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree from which I commanded you not to eat?" The man said, "The woman you put with me, she gave me the fruit from the tree and I ate it." Then the Lord God said to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" And the woman said, "Well, it was the snake deceived me and I ate." What were the consequences of Adam and Eve giving in to temptation? Well, most of you will already know that it was through that sin came into the perfect world. The passage goes on to say that God killed the first animal to provide clothes made out of skin for Adam and Eve. When God asked Eve for an explanation about what she'd done, her response was, "Well, the snake deceived me and I ate it." Is that our response when we get caught? "Oh, I was tricked." "Oh, it was somebody else's fault. I was told it would be okay." But we always have a choice when it comes down to our own attitude and behaviour and being able to act responsibly. In these areas, it's a real sign of maturity. Whether you understand or not, Adam and Eve didn't understand the consequences of what they did, but we just have to do as we're told. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, it tells us that we're not on our own when we're tempted. It also said that other people throughout history have had the same temptations that we have right across the world, but they've stood against it, they've not given in. And it says that God is always there to help us through whatever the temptation is. See, there was a plan to make our relationship right with God again, and that required another death. Can you remember? Jesus willingly died to pay the price for the wrong things we've done, so that if we believe in him, our relationship can be repaired with God. And God is faithful. He'll not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. Remember that Jesus came to save us, and that includes saving us from things that tempt us, no matter how big or how small. So today, we're going to have a second challenge tonight. And that's, we're all responsible for our own actions. So I would like you to make a decision to don't allow temptation to control you, but control it instead. Now, I think some of you, if you have a little bit of a think, will understand that. There's always things, a bit more TV, putting the phone on in your room when your mum's told you to put it off, just a bit more. And it gets that it controls us instead of us controlling it. So I've found personally, and I'm sure Beatrice and Mark would join in with this as well, the more I don't give in, and the easier it is next time. And God gives me strength to do the right thing. But how do we ask for help? Yes, we'll pray. So we'll pray now. Put your hands together and close your eyes so you can concentrate on what I'm going to say. Dear God, we know that you will never leave us, that you love us so much that Jesus came to die in our place, so that we could have forgiveness for the wrong things that we do. Help us to stand strong and do as we should, whether people see us or not. Help us to grow, and whether we understand the consequences or not, that we do as we should. Thank you for loving us, Lord. Amen. Amen. Well, thank you for listening. Presume you have. And just think on these words. We all have temptations, and it's not the temptation that's wrong. It's actually giving into it. So we'll be thinking of your kids. Thank you. Oh, Mark's now going to do something, which I think might be quite funny. Blue Peter, it's not.
Right, kids, I'm not very good at craft, but we're going to do a craft. We're going to send you this out in the post. You can see that there are 3 rectangles on there, and you can make 3 types of helicopter. So I'm going to make the big one tonight. So what you've got to do first of all is cut round the big black lights. I'll do this quickly. Make a right mess of it. Okay, cut out like that until eventually you get a piece of paper like this. Okay, a rectangle, and we've got to fold along the dotted lines, fold along that one, and fold along that one, and just to put a bit on it, we're going to put a paper clip on the bottom there, just so it weighs it down. And then we're going to fold number A this way and B that way. So you'll end up with something like that. It looks a bit floppy, but what you do is you throw it up in the air, and it should go around like a helicopter. I did earlier as well. Okay? You can't see it, but it's doing it at the bottom there. So I want you to have a go at that at home. You make 3 helicopters and see if they fly better than mine. Okay? Right, kids, I think that's about all we've got time for this week. Where are you, Beatrice? Here you are. Susan, come on in.
I'm here.
Right, so we'll see you next time, kids. Ta-da!
Bye.
Bye.